You're about to hear my story. It starts with being taken and ends with the last man I ever expected to trust. Stay with me. This one matters. Let's begin. I didn't have time to pack, just enough to grab my shoes. The wrong ones, of course. Heels. The most useless things I could have worn when the world started coming apart. Dominic didn't say a word when he shoved me into the back of that black car. He didn't look at me, didn't explain, didn't apologize, just drove. Fast, silent, unshakable, like he'd done this before. Like this, vanishing me in the middle of the night, was just part of the job. You don't have the right, I said once. He didn't answer. Does my father even know you took me? Still nothing. It was almost dawn when the car slowed. A gravel road, a wrought iron gate, a house that looked like it had been carved into the hillside itself, remote, empty, the kind of place no one would find unless they already knew it was there. He opened my door, finally, and only said one thing, "You're safe here." I should have screamed, should have run. But the silence was so deep it made my throat ache. And something in his eyes told me that wherever we were going, it was safer than where we'd been. So I followed him, into the villa, into the dark, into the quiet place where my name didn't mean anything anymore. The next morning, I tried to call Isabella. There was no signal, no landline, no Wi-Fi. Just stone walls and clean sheets and a man who moved like nothing surprised him. He made coffee, brought it to me on the terrace without saying a word, then stood by the railing and watched the woods. I watched him. You could tell me where we are. He didn't look away from the trees. No, I'm not a hostage. You're not free either. I blinked. Excuse me? He turned to face me then and said calmly, "Someone tried to put a bullet through your window 3 nights ago." My stomach dropped. You're lying. No, I would have heard you didn't because I intercepted it. I put the mug down, carefully, quietly, and sat back in the chair like my spine was made of glass. I was at my office. I know. I was supposed to have dinner with Gianna. You never made it. He said it like a report, like none of this belonged to him, even though he was the one who'd taken me from everything I knew. But it did belong to him, because if what he was saying was true, he'd saved me. You could have told me, I whispered. You would have refused to come. Because I didn't know who I could trust. You don't need to. He sat across from me, leaned forward and locked his gaze with mine. You only have to trust me. I didn't answer, because part of me already did. The first few days passed in slow silence. He kept to himself, mornings patrolling the grounds, afternoons repairing the southern fence, evenings sharpening knives he never explained. He didn't hover. He didn't stare. But I always knew where he was, and I think he always knew where I was, too. On the 5th day, I asked him why it was him. Why not one of my cousins? Why not a team of guards? Why not someone I knew? He looked at me, steady, still, and said, "Because I was the only one who wouldn't hesitate to pull the trigger if they came for you again." There was no threat in it, just truth. Uncomplicated, undeniable. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the sunroom, wrapped in a blanket, listening to the wind scrape across the glass. When he passed by the door, he didn't ask what was wrong. He just placed a mug beside me. Warm, black tea. The kind I always drank when I was anxious. I never told him that. But he knew. I don't remember when the fear started to fade. Maybe it was the way he never touched me unless it was to hand me something. Maybe it was how he checked every window, every night, without needing to be seen. Maybe it was the silence between us that started to feel less like punishment and more like protection. By the end of the first week, I stopped asking when I'd be allowed to leave, because part of me already knew. I didn't want to. Not yet. Not without knowing what I'd be walking back into, and not if it meant leaving him behind. The first time I dreamed about the night of the shooting, I woke up gasping. The hallway light was already on, and when I opened my bedroom door, he was there. Not startled, not alarmed, just present. He didn't speak, didn't step forward, just stood like a wall between me and the rest of the house, and waited. "I didn't even know it happened," I whispered. "I know." "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Because they didn't want to lose you." I looked at him for a long time after that, not because I was afraid, but because I wasn't. And that scared me more than anything. The walls aren't closing in, but they're not letting me go either. This house was made for silence. Stone hallways, long corridors, doors that shut softly but stay locked if you don't ask for help. There's no staff. No noise from the road, just me, him, and the sound of the sea when the wind changes. It doesn't feel like a prison, but it doesn't feel like freedom either. Dominic is everywhere and nowhere. I never hear his footsteps. But somehow, every time I turn a corner, he's already in the next room, fixing a loose hinge, scanning the perimeter, reading through folders I never get to see, and yet he's never once stepped into my space without permission. Still, I feel him. Even when I close my eyes, I feel him. Like a shadow that doesn't follow me, but waits until I need it. And I hate how steady that makes me feel. This morning I stood at the window for half an hour just watching him move through the grounds. He was resetting the traps on the back fence. There's no reason for me to know that. But I do, because he's methodical, predictable in a way I'm learning to read. 3 checks per fence, 2 glances toward the blind spots. 1 slow turn before he walks back toward the villa, always in the same rhythm, like his body has a memory I'm not part of. Not yet. Do you ever get tired of being on guard? I ask him over dinner. He doesn't blink. No. You don't wish you could relax? This is relaxed. I raise an eyebrow. You're carrying 2 weapons right now. I only need 1. I almost laugh. But then I realize he's not joking, and that somehow makes me feel safer than if he were. The next day, I try something I haven't dared yet. I cook. Just pasta and garlic. Simple. Familiar. He walks in as I'm finishing the sauce and pauses in the doorway like he's assessing the risk level of a tomato. I was hungry, I say, not looking up. You could have asked. You're not my keeper. Silence. Then, no, I'm your shield. That stops me, because it's not a correction, it's a quiet admission. And I realize I believe him. He eats slowly, thoughtfully, not like a man who's tasting food, like a man who's not used to anyone cooking for him at all. When he finishes, he stands and says only 1 word, thank you. And for reasons I can't explain, my eyes sting after he leaves the room. That night, I wake to find the hallway light is off. It's never off. I step out of bed, heart thudding. Check the hallway. No sound, no movement, just the creak of 1 board downstairs. My breath catches. I walk barefoot down the staircase, every step deliberate, ears sharp. At the bottom of the stairs I find him. Not fighting, not bleeding, sleeping. On the worn leather couch by the cold hearth, there's a book resting on his chest. His shirt is unbuttoned at the throat, and his hand is curled slightly, like he'd meant to stay alert but forgot how. I just stand there, watching him breathe, watching the way the hard lines of his body soften in sleep, and something in me loosens, because for the first time since I got here, I see him unready, unarmored, human. I should go back upstairs, but I don't. I kneel down beside the couch and whisper, why do you care so much? He doesn't wake, but part of me thinks he heard me anyway. The next morning, the hallway light is back on. Breakfast is waiting in the kitchen. No questions, no conversations, but there's a folded note beside the coffee. Just 2 words, you matter. I sit down, and I cry. Not loud, not broken, just quiet tears that fall without asking, because I believe him. And that might be the most dangerous thing of all. That afternoon, a thunderstorm rolls in from the hills. The house groans. Wind rushes through the chimney flue like a whisper with teeth. I gather candles. He closes the shutters. By dusk, we're sitting in the living room, 2 feet apart facing the fire, shadows flickering between us. He speaks first. I was 17 the first time I had to disappear someone. I glance over. He's staring into the flames. I didn't ask questions. I didn't look back. Do you now? I ask. No, but I don't forget them either. I pause. Will you forget me? His head turns, slowly. No, you're the only one I ever hid to protect. I should pull back, but I don't, because the only thing louder than the storm outside is the silence between us that no longer feels empty. He shifts slightly toward me. Not a threat, not a move, just presence. And I feel it again, that steadiness, that hum, that pull. He says my name like it's the only one that still exists, and I whisper his in return. Dominic. I don't touch him, but I want to. Not because I'm afraid, because I'm not here, not with him. I hear it before I feel it, metal on glass, a crack in the rhythm of the storm, then silence. The kind that makes your skin rise before your mind can explain why. I sit up slowly, blanket falling to my waist, heart beginning to race. The fire's gone out, the power flicked off with the thunder an hour ago, and Dominic isn't in the chair anymore. I move through the house in bare feet. The candles we lit are down to nubs, only 2 still burn, 1 on the stairwell, 1 in the kitchen. His shadow isn't near either. Then I hear it. A click. Soft. Mechanical. Like a latch being checked. Followed by a shift of gravel on the back patio. I cross the dining room in 3 careful steps, pull open the curtain, and freeze. He's outside. Not walking. Not patrolling. Waiting. Body taut. Shoulders slightly angled. Gun drawn. My breath catches. And then a second figure moves in the dark. No face. Just a shape slipping too close to the house. I don't think. I open the back door and step into the cold night, not even flinching at the wind. Dominic turns the instant he hears the click. His voice cuts the air like a blade. Inside. Now. But I don't move. There's someone out there. I know. His tone is quiet, dead calm, like this isn't panic, it's protocol. Then the figure moves again. Closer this time. Dominic lifts his weapon, silent and sharp. One breath. Then the shot. Muffled. Precise. The shape falls, and just like that, the threat is gone. I don't know how long I stand there, just breathing, watching him lower his weapon with no apology, just presence and purpose. He turns to me slowly. His voice is low. You shouldn't have come out. You shouldn't have been alone. We stare at each other. The wind rustles through the trees. Something in me cracks. Not from fear, from knowing. Knowing he would have done it again without hesitation. Knowing he just did it for me. I follow him back inside. Not because I'm told, because I want to. He doesn't speak while he checks the doors. He doesn't look at me when he wipes the gun clean. He doesn't flinch when I step closer and whisper, "You've done that before." Yes. How many? His hands still. Then he looks at me. Enough to know I only regret the ones I didn't do fast enough. I don't step back. He watches my face for judgment. There isn't any. And I think that unnerves him more than anything else. I say it softly. You killed to protect me. I would again. There's a pause. Then he adds quieter. I would have done it without the order, even if it meant losing everything. That's when the breath leaves me. Because I realized this was never just duty. It was never just about keeping me alive. It was always him, watching, choosing, staying close when everyone else looked away. I move closer, close enough to see the rain at his collar, close enough to feel his breath shift. I reach for his hand. It's cold, but steady. Do you hate what you had to become? I ask. He doesn't answer right away. Then he says, I hate that it was the only way I could keep people like you safe. I wrap my fingers around his. He lets me, and for the first time he looks unguarded. Not weak, just bare. I don't think you're cruel, I whisper. I think you're the only one who knew how to disappear without becoming lost. He blinks slowly, then nods once, like the words found a part of him he'd stopped trying to explain. That night, I don't sleep in my bed. I don't ask permission either. I curl up on the couch near his, a blanket around my shoulders, the storm finally fading. He doesn't move closer, but he stays awake. The whole night. Just watching the windows. And I think me. He places a folded paper on the table. It's a message. From the family. Intercepted. He lets me read it, every word. Someone's still looking for me. But they're not trying to find me out of love. They want control, access, power. I set the paper down. Then I say the one thing I never thought I would. I'm glad you took me. Dominic doesn't smile, but something in his chest rises with a breath I know he's been holding for days. And then he says, me too. I need to pause here because this is when I stop pretending he was just my captor. He never was. Not from the moment he brought me tea without asking. Not from the way he watched the dark instead of me. And especially not when he killed without flinching, just to keep me breathing. That night I saw it all. Not the blood. Not the silence after the shot. Him. The man behind the duty, the choice behind the order, the stillness behind the violence. And what scared me most wasn't what he did. It was how safe I felt after. Let's continue. The storm broke something. Not the house, not the trees. Me. It was like I'd been holding still too long, trying not to want, trying not to need, until the thunder cracked loud enough to shake something loose. And now I can't seem to stop looking at him. He moves like the ground belongs to him, like nothing touches him unless he lets it. Even this morning, when he offered me breakfast like we hadn't stood together in the doorway with death a few feet away, he didn't speak about it. He didn't have to. The quiet between us isn't empty anymore. It's charged. And I'm tired of pretending I don't feel it. That night, the power goes out again. No rain this time, just wind and distance. He lights 2 candles. Doesn't ask where I want them, doesn't ask if I'm afraid, but he stays in the same room, kitchen, living room, my reading chair by the window, always close, never touching, but near enough I feel the weight of him in every breath. I finally say it out loud. You don't sleep much. He shrugs from the floor where he's fixing something I can't name. I sleep enough. I kneel beside him, fingers curling over my knees. How do you live like that? He doesn't answer right away. Then, quiet. When I was 22, I fell asleep on a job, a safe house. I thought we were clear. He doesn't finish. He doesn't have to. I place my hand near his on the floor, not touching, but there, a bridge he can cross if he wants to. He doesn't. Not yet. But he looks at me, and in that look is everything he hasn't said. That night, I stand at his door. I don't knock. I just wait. When he opens it, shirt off, shadows climbing the walls behind him, he doesn't act surprised. Francesca? I nod once. I don't want to be alone. He steps aside. I walk in. There's only one bed. It's wide and quiet and neatly made. He doesn't reach for me, but I sit down and pull my legs up, pressing the blanket to my chest. I used to dream about being invisible, I say. He sits at the edge of the bed. Why? Because I thought maybe I could disappear on my own terms, instead of being taken. He looks at me then. I didn't take you. I know, that's what makes this worse. His brow lifts slightly. I followed you willingly, I whisper, even when I didn't know it. He doesn't move, just watches me like I'm something fragile he doesn't trust himself to touch. But I want him to, not because I'm scared, because I'm not. Not with him. Not anymore. Come here, I say softly. He doesn't hesitate this time. He climbs into bed and lies down beside me, not close, not touching, but near enough I feel the shift in the mattress. The warmth at my back. I turn toward him. One hand at his chest. He's solid and still beneath me. I press my forehead to his collarbone. He exhales. His hand comes up, slow, careful, and rests against my spine. Nothing more, but everything changes. I pull back just enough to look at him. His face is unreadable, but his breathing has changed. And when I whisper, "Can I?" he nods. Once, like the answer was never going to be no, I kiss him first, slow, no urgency, just the softest brush of my lips over his. His mouth parts, his breath catches, but he doesn't rush me, doesn't deepen it, just lets me lead. And I fall into him like I've been falling since the moment he took me away from everything else. His hand moves to the side of my neck. His thumb brushes just under my jaw. It's not possessive. It's reverent, like he's afraid I'll vanish if he touches me wrong. When he kisses me back, it's soft, steady. A promise, not a possession. His hand slides to the small of my back, guiding me closer. Our bodies press together, warmth to warmth, heartbeat to heartbeat. Nothing rushed, nothing hungry, just closeness, need wrapped in safety. When he lays me back against the pillows, it's slow. Every motion, careful. Every pause, intentional. Like he's memorizing the sound of my breathing. Like this isn't about desire at all. It's about letting go without fear. There's a moment when we just hold each other, fully clothed, breathing the same air, his palm against my ribcage, my fingers at his jaw. And I think, this is what it means to be seen. Not watched. Seen. I stay. He brushes his lips against my temple and says, I've been here since the day they told me to take you. And when I fall asleep against him, finally warm, finally whole, I don't dream of vanishing. I dream of being kept. The air shifts before the truth arrives. Like the house knows something is coming. The breeze is colder, the windows rattle, and Dominic moves like he already regrets what he's about to do. I'm sitting on the stone steps outside when he walks up with a folded envelope in his hand. He doesn't speak, just stands there, arm outstretched, paper held like a wound he can't close. I take it, open it, and the first line takes my breath away. Francesca was never the real target. I read the rest in silence, and when I finish, I look up at him like I've never seen him before. You knew. He doesn't answer. You knew this wasn't about me. Still nothing. I rise, slow and careful, heart pounding. You let me believe they were coming for me, that they wanted me dead. His voice is low. They would have killed you anyway. I can't breathe, not properly. The world is tilting. They were using me, I whisper, to control Isabella, or Gianna, or someone else. His jaw is tight. They knew you'd run if they made it about your sisters. I take a step back. And you let them. His eyes flicker then, not with guilt, with something heavier, something that looks like grief. I didn't let them, he says quietly. I made the call before they could. I shake my head. No, Dominic, this isn't protection. This is silence. You took away my choice. I gave you a chance to live. You took my life. It comes out louder than I meant, but I don't regret it, because now I see what this has been. Not exile, not safety, a lie, wrapped in a man I almost let myself trust. He looks at me with something sharp in his eyes, not anger, pain. I made the choice they were too slow to make, because I couldn't watch them sacrifice you for leverage. And you didn't think I could handle the truth? I didn't think you'd stay if you knew. Silence. The kind that breaks things. I turn away from him and walk to the edge of the gravel path. The sea is rough today, and I feel like it's echoing something inside me I can't name. He stays behind me, close enough to feel, far enough not to reach. I was never going to hurt you, he says. But you did, I whisper. I wrap my arms around myself, not for warmth, for stillness, because I can feel everything spinning again, and I don't know how to stop it. That night, I don't eat. He leaves food on the table. Doesn't push, doesn't speak, but I see the way his hand hesitates when he sets down the fork, like he's afraid I'll never sit across from him again. He doesn't sleep either. I hear his footsteps, his door opening, his watchful breath moving through the dark like a confession. I want to be angry, I want to scream, but all I feel is cold and tired. The next morning, I find him on the back steps. Gun on the table, coffee in his hand, eyes watching the horizon like it owes him an answer. I sit beside him. I don't speak. Neither does he. We just watch the sun come up through a sky too gray to promise anything. When I finally break the silence, it's soft. Why me? His head tilts. What do you mean? I'm not the strongest sister or the most connected. I'm not even a threat. His jaw tightens. No, he says quietly. You're something worse. I blink. What? You're good. The word hits harder than I expect. He keeps going. You believe people can change. You try to fix things that were never yours to carry you off, and they hate that, because it makes them see what they've become. I stare at him, and the anger starts to bleed out, not because I forgive him, but because I finally understand him. He didn't take me to hide me. He took me to save something he thought was worth keeping whole, even if it meant lying to me, even if it meant becoming the villain in my eyes. I reach for the coffee mug between us, warm, heavy, still half full. I sip from it and hand it back. He takes it without a word, and we sit there again, not touching, not fixed, but not broken the same way anymore, because now I know the cost, and I still haven't walked away. It happened just after midnight. The sound was sharp, metal catching wood. The side gate. I sat up in bed instantly. No dreams, no confusion, just awake, because I already knew. By the time I opened the bedroom door, Dominic was already down the hall, dressed, armed. His eyes met mine once. No words, just one tilt of his head. Stay back. I didn't listen. I followed, because I knew if I stayed behind, I'd never forgive myself. There were 3 of them. Fast, quiet, untrained. They made it as far as the eastern corridor before he caught the first one. The second drew a knife. The third was still inside. I saw it all. The way Dominic moved without hesitation. The sound of the blade hitting the floor. The quiet grunt as he went down, one hand pressed to his side. Blood. By the time it was over, the house was still again. But Dominic was slumped against the wall, breathing hard, eyes unfocused. And I didn't care about anything except getting to him. I dropped to my knees beside him. His hand came up, instinctively trying to shield me. Francesca. No, I whispered, taking his face in both hands. Don't. Just let me stay. He let his head fall back against the wall, and for a long moment we just breathed, together. I cleaned the wound myself. It wasn't deep, a graze across his ribs, but I still cried when I saw the blood. Not because I couldn't handle it, because he had. Because he always had. And I hadn't said thank you. Not really. He sat on the edge of the bed, silent, letting me wipe away the last of it with shaking hands. I looked up at him. I stayed. He met my eyes. I know. You told me the truth. I didn't run. No. Even now. I'm still here. He exhaled once. Rough, like the words hit somewhere raw. I don't want you to stay because you're afraid. I'm not. He nodded. I want you to stay because you choose me. My hands froze, because I'd never heard him say anything like that before. Not an order, not a warning, a need. I stood between his knees, wrapped the bandage tight around his ribs, and said softly, I do. His hands came up slowly. One settled on my waist. The other cupped the back of my neck. Not forceful, careful, like he still didn't believe he was allowed. I leaned in and kissed him. This time there was no hesitation, just breath and closeness and the soft sound of surrender. He stood, lifting me with him, holding me so gently I forgot what it felt like to be braced for pain. My arms went around his neck, his hands slid to the small of my back. No urgency, just heat and stillness and something real. He laid me down like I mattered, like he dreamed of this and didn't want to wake too fast. Our bodies moved in slow rhythm, kisses lingering, hands reverent. My breath caught when he whispered, "I never should have had to hide you." I touched his cheek. "You didn't. You gave me something no one else did." "What?" A place where I could stop, pretending I was okay. That was the moment we broke open. No masks, no walls, just skin to skin, soul to soul. After we didn't move for a long time, I curled into him, my head resting just below his heart. He ran his fingers through my hair, and for the first time since this started, he smiled. Not wide, not loud, but real. "I was wrong," I said, half asleep. "About what?" "You're not just my protector." "What am I?" I looked up at him. "You're my home." And he kissed my forehead like that word meant everything. Because maybe it did. This is the moment I should have walked away. I didn't. I don't want to. And I need you to understand why, what happened next. Because when I saw him bleeding and still standing between me and danger like he didn't care what it cost him, I stopped being afraid of what he was and started needing who he'd become for me. The way he held me that night wasn't careful. It was quiet, steady, whole, like he'd been waiting his entire life to give someone peace. And maybe that was the real danger. Not the men who wanted to use, but the man who never did. Let's finish this. We didn't speak much the next morning, but the silence wasn't cold. It was full, like every word had already been said, and now all that was left was breath and time and being near each other. Dominic made tea again, set it in front of me, eyes sweeping the window, gun holstered at his hip. Same as always. But something had shifted. He didn't just glance to check if I was okay. He watched me like he was already mine. "I have to send a message today," he said softly, wrapping a cloth around his side. "To my family? To your sister?" I paused. "Which one?" He met my eyes. "The one who gave the order to hide you." My chest tightened. "Isabella?" He nodded, then added, quieter, "She doesn't know you were targeted as leverage. She still thinks they were coming for you." I looked down at the tea. Warm, familiar, like him. "So tell her the truth," I said. "I will." He didn't say more, but his eyes lingered. Like he wanted to say something else, but didn't trust the words not to ruin what we'd found. I stood, walked to him, laid a hand gently at the hem of his shirt. "Let me check your bandage." He raised his arm without hesitation, and I peeled the cloth back slowly. The skin was healing. Not perfectly. Not yet, but clean. Closed. My hand hovered over it, then pressed lightly against his ribs. "You bled for me." "I'd do it again." I looked up. "I know." And then, "I want to go back." He didn't flinch, but he went very, very still. "I want to face them," I said, voice steady, "on my terms." "You will." His hand lifted to my cheek, but not alone. It was the way he said it. Quiet, final, not a question, not a plan, a promise. He stepped closer. Not because he wanted more, but because he wanted me to know I wasn't going anywhere alone again. And I reached for him, because I wanted the same thing. We didn't rush this time. Not that we ever had, but this was different. Softer, no storm outside, no blood drying between us, no fear, just his thumb against my jaw, his breath at my hairline, his hands sliding beneath my sweater, not with hunger, but with care. And when he laid me down again, it wasn't because we needed to feel something. It was because we already did. I pulled his shirt off gently, traced the line of the bandage with the backs of my fingers. And when he kissed me, slow, steady, grounding, I let myself fall all the way into him. Our mouths moved like they already knew each other. Our bodies followed. Heat rising slow and warm between skin and breath and everything we hadn't said but already meant. He touched me like I wasn't something to conquer, but something to protect. Even here, even now. His lips found the hollow of my throat, my collarbone, my shoulder. He moved like he was memorizing, not claiming. And when I whispered his name into the space between us, he stilled. Just long enough to say, "I've got you." That was the moment, the one I'll never forget. Because that's when I knew. He wasn't just hiding me from the world, he was holding me in it. After we lay in silence, not empty, just close. He tucked the blanket around me, pressed his lips to the top of my head, and said, "I sent the message." I looked up. What did you say? That you'd come back when you were ready, and that anyone who tried to rush you would answer to me. I blinked. You did that? He nodded once. She tried to apologize. I didn't let her. My heart tightened. Why not? He looked at me then and said the one thing that made everything else quiet, because you're not something to be sorry for. You're someone to answer to. That's when I broke. Softly, silently, because no one had ever said that before. Not like that. Not like they meant it. I touched his cheek, kissed him once, slow, and whispered, then I'm not going back alone. You're not. He didn't say he loved me, but he didn't have to, because that promise, that quiet, steady, I will stand between you and anything, it was more than love. It was everything I hadn't dared to want. Until now. The car ride back to the city was quiet, no guards, no tail, just Dominic driving, one hand loose on the wheel, the other resting where mine had just been. There was no fear in me, just breath and clarity and the low, humming certainty that I was choosing this, all of it. I'm not who I was when you took me, I said softly. He didn't glance over, but I felt the shift in him. No, he said, you're not. And you're not just the man who took me. He was quiet for a long time. Then, I never wanted to be. The Moretti compound sat at the edge of the city like it had always been there, watching, waiting, unyielding. But I didn't flinch when the gates opened. And I didn't hold my breath when we stepped inside. Because this time I wasn't returning like something that needed to be fixed. I was walking in as someone who had already chosen herself. Isabella was waiting in the library, her expression unreadable. The others were further back, some of my sisters. Rinaldi, 2 of the family lawyers. But I didn't look at them, just her, and the flicker of guilt that crossed her face when she saw me. You're alive, she said quietly. Yes. Dominic stepped just behind me, quiet, unmoving, not intervening, not leaving, just there, exactly where I needed him. I did what I thought would keep you safe, Isabella said. No, I replied. You did what you thought would keep everyone else safe. Her breath caught. But she didn't argue. I stepped forward. Not far, but far enough that I could feel the balance shift. I'm not mad at you, I said softly, but I'm not yours to move around anymore. Her jaw tightened. I never. You did. I let that sit, then added, and maybe you were right. Maybe disappearing me was the only move left, but it won't happen again. She looked past me to Dominic. He didn't blink. He didn't need to. I told you she'd come back when she was ready, he said, and she is. It wasn't defiance, that it was something more dangerous, conviction, because there was nothing they could offer me any more that I didn't already have in his protection, and there was nothing they could take that I hadn't already chosen to give. Isabella nodded once, then surprised me. She stepped forward, took my hand, and whispered, I'm glad it was him. And just like that, the tightness in my chest softened, because I believed her. Even if she didn't say the word sorry, she meant it. And that was enough. Later that night, Dominic didn't drive us back to the villa. We stopped at a small house tucked between the hills, stone, quiet, warm. I bought it 6 years ago, he said. Never thought I'd use it. I looked around, at the open windows, the soft curtains, the sound of trees rustling instead of sirens. Why now? He stepped in behind me and said, because you don't need hiding anymore. You need a place that's yours. I turned, looked at him fully. He didn't flinch. He just stood there waiting, steady in the way he always had been. So I walked to him, laid my hands on his chest and said, then stay. His breath caught, but only for a second. Then, always. He didn't ask for a future, he just made room for it. The next morning I made tea, he fixed the porch step, and when we sat on the back stairs with the sun warming our faces, I realized I'd been protected, I'd been saved. But this was the first time I'd ever been chosen. Not because I was leverage, not because I was blood, but because someone saw who I was beneath all of it and didn't try to change me. Dominic reached for my hand. I let him have it, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like something breakable. I felt like something kept. Thank you for listening to my story, The Sister He Hid from the World. This one was quieter, closer. The kind of story where love wasn't loud, it was shelter. Dominic never said much, but I remember every time he stood between me and something that wanted to break me. And that's what love felt like in the end. Not a promise, but a choice. If this story stayed with you, tell me where you were listening from. My sister's story is next. Gianna's. and she doesn't even know she's being protected yet. Subscribe so you don't miss any stories. See you in the next book.